Hey everybody, I am here with Tanya from Bright Spot Papier, and we are going to talk about her shop today. So hey Tanya, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your shop?
Okay, so my shop is called Bright Spot Papier and Art. I opened it in 2016, and it has products in it that feature my pointed pen calligraphy, hand lettering, and watercolor in illustration. And really, at the root of everything is I love beautiful words, I love quotes, and I love color. So it sort of wraps all that together. And so the products that I sell in my shop feature my designs that start out on paper, and I've put them on prints and cards and stickers and a number of other things. And I also have original pieces in my shop.
Awesome. So tell us how you got started doing this.
So in 2015, I challenged myself to be creative for every day for a year. Yeah, I was dealing with depression and chronic pain at the time, and I had been taking art therapy classes. And so these art therapy classes forced me to kind of think about, oh yeah, I have art supplies at home. I really like quotes. I love watercolor. So I pulled out a lot of these things and started working on just being creative every day. I didn't have to create anything specific. It was just, I did crochet, I did knitting, I did collage. But over time, through that year, it kind of, I gravitated to hand lettering. And then that evolved into calligraphy, and then it just sort of rolled from there. So people started asking, can I buy this piece that you've shared on Instagram? Or can you create something original for me? So it sort of evolved from there. I'd always wanted to have an Etsy shop. I had no idea what I would sell, and then it just sort of evolved.
That's awesome. So you said you started in 2016 officially with your Etsy shop?
Yes, I opened it in the spring of 2016. There was a bit of ramp up, like figuring out like shipping supplies and prices and materials and all that sort of thing. And photography for sure was, a learning curve. Yeah, so I spent that year in 2015 just being creative and finding what I like to do. And then once I sort of started focusing on hand lettering, then I got books on calligraphy. I took an online course. I flew from PEI to Toronto and took 2 calligraphy workshops with a woman out of the States that I had followed on Instagram forever and ever.
Really cool.
Yeah, so now I have like 4 years of, practice under my belt now. It takes time to kind of find your own rhythm and your own style. And I'm still learning, but yeah.
I love it. So do you use, is there a special kind of pen that you use or different pens?
Yeah, so it's not, some people think it's a fountain pen, but actually it's like 2 pieces. Like you have the nibs, the little metal nibs, and then you have what they call a pen, but it's like a nib holder really, that I use, and then you dip it in the ink and you write. So that's sort of one aspect of what I do. I do calligraphy. I like also writing out words with a paintbrush. I like doing hand lettering with special like brush pens. So really at the root of it is the words, and if I move to use my calligraphy pen or a brush pen or a paintbrush, it just depends on the day, I guess. Yeah.
That's really, really neat. Like, and you must have such a steady hand.
I guess, yeah. And maybe not too much caffeine.
That's so can you tell us about a cool or really fun customer experience you've had?
Well, I was trying to think about that earlier in response to your questions. Like, I would say there are 2 kind of special customer experiences that I've had. One is when I'm at an Etsy market and someone will come to my booth and they'll say, I follow you on Instagram. I'm buying this piece today for the following reason. And like, I get emotional because they'll impart to me, like, it's because my daughter suffers from depression and this really means a lot to me that, you have been nurtured by your art, and this piece is really special for that reason. Like, I've got goosebumps. So I'll have moms who will come up and say, I'm buying this for my sister. She suffers from depression and it's really important, like the message in this particular piece. So that's sort of one piece where I'm dealing with a customer like at a market face to face. And then another is, I also do custom pieces. I'll only take on I don't know, sometimes 2 to 3 a year, because they can be pretty in depth. Like sometimes they're quite large, like 11 by 17 or 11 by 14, but quite detailed. And I'll write out, like sometimes it's a poem that a customer will have given me, or a quote that resonates with them, or something that resonates with the person they're going to give it to. And then I'll illustrate it based on what they feel is important. So that sort of customer back and forth, and to try and bring something to life that they've envisioned in their head, and just the reaction in the end is really rewarding, that you can evoke that kind of feeling, right?
I love that people resonate so much with your story, and that just that you're so inspiring with your story and doing this. I have goosebumps when you're talking about that. Like it kind of embodies what being an Etsy seller is that we're taking a moment in our lives and shipping it, it could be next door across the world, and people are part of our story now.
Like it's such a special connection.
It's really like, it's hard to explain to someone that's not, I find sometimes, an Etsy seller, that how connected you can be to your customer.
Absolutely.
Which is really neat. So you're on PEI, you're from Newfoundland. So tell us about being Atlantic Canada. I know in some of your pieces you have the sailor's alphabet, is one that stood out to me. But how inspires your art?
Well, I married into a very musical family on PEI. So the Sailor's Alphabet is actually a song that my brother-in-law sings at his Kayleys on the North Shore. So I would come to PEI 2 weeks in the summer. My husband and I were both military for 20 years. So we would come for 2 weeks, and we would soak up like family and beach and sun and Kayleys and music. And the Sailor's Alphabet really, you link arms with the people next to you and you sing along. So it was really special, and it reminded me of my Newfoundland roots. Like my mom loved to sing, totally off key, but she loved to sing. She still loves to sing. So the Sailor's Alphabet, it had been with me for a really long time. And when I was just starting out with my year of creativity, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to illustrate that? So researching that and illustrating it, that was sort of my first really detailed piece that I did. And PEI and Newfoundland too, and the Maritimes in general, like the access to the water and the landscape and the slower pace of life and the people, like all of that to me is infused in just who I am, and inspires, I think my work in many different ways, depending on the day. Yeah. So
it's so interesting, because that's also the feedback is community, and just being from here inspires it, and just all of it inspires people. I want you to tell me about a maker that inspires you.
Oh goodness. So I was thinking about that. Like, I've been on Etsy for a really long time as a customer. So I started really early on following this artist, I'm not sure where she is, maybe Oregon, Katie Daisy. So she's an illustrator in like acrylics and inks, but it's also word-based too. So I love her work. I love Amy of Headspace Illustration out of Fredericton. Yeah. I love her work. Like, it's so true to life. It's crazy. Samantha Dion Baker is another illustrator. She's on Etsy, and she's in New York City. Like, she's published a book about drawing your day and sketch journaling and stuff. So I really love her work. Like, I think, and calligraphers all over the world, because when I did the online calligraphy course, we had instructors from the US, from the Philippines, from the UK, like they were all over. So your network of, learning about other calligraphers, it grew exponentially because we were seeing these instructors around the world. So I wouldn't necessarily be able to. Molly Suber-Thorpe, I've got her book. That was sort of the first thing that I worked through before doing an online class. The woman out of the States, Laura Hooper, she was the one who flew to Toronto to teach the class. So yeah, I think I appreciate the amount of time and effort that goes into really perfecting your craft. Like, these people are crazy amazing at what they do, and I love to see their progress. I love to see their process videos. But yeah, you can learn a lot from following along on their journeys too. That's really great. Now tell us what your favorite part about being a maker is. Oh goodness. I think really, ultimately, there's two things. Being a maker in what I do specifically, it's really meditative. I came at it from a place of illness and art therapy, and I find when I start drawing, painting, or writing out in calligraphy or hand lettering, I lose track of time, and it honestly is like a painkiller. Like I completely tune out everything, and I'm immersed in what I'm doing. So to me, that part of being a maker is really, it's important. Like I can't lose that aspect of my craft because I think it's helpful. And the other part is that you have you can work at your own pace. So there are some times where I'm not feeling great. So I'm not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. I'm, evenings or mornings when I feel good, or on the weekends. And so there's more freedom to look after myself too.
A really, really great point. Because we often, think of being an entrepreneur as like just kind of burning the candle at both ends, but you're doing it to look after yourself.
Yeah.
I love that. It's great. Like that's really a huge positive about doing this and being creative.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important that we support local makers?
Oh goodness, the list is long.
Okay, good.
I think like when you support a local maker, you're helping them support themselves, you're helping them support their family, you're helping them get better at their craft, you're helping to give their work more reach in the world because you'll spread the word. And I think by extension too, you're supporting the local community. You're not supporting some ginormous conglomerate somewhere with no face. Like it's a person with a family who has a roof over their heads, whose kids are in sports, who, I don't know, you name it. Like you're really supporting real people in your community. So I think, thinking locally, like not can I order this off Amazon, but can I find something that's handmade by somebody in the area that'll fit the bill instead. Yeah.
So true. It's so true. Now I want to hear something fun and interesting about you.
Oh goodness.
It's my
I was trying to think. I guess the one thing that shocks most people when they say, oh, you're an artist, and then I tell them how I arrived at it. Like I was in the Army for 20 years as a signals officer. I studied at the Royal Military College of Canada in Kingston in electrical engineering. I did my master's at Carleton later in modeling and simulation. So very different from what I'm doing now. But I think like being an officer, being in the Army, or just being in the Army in general, attention to detail, and being an engineer, attention to detail like that, I think comes across in my work. Yeah, I'm not abstract. I'm always focused on the little details and the nuances of my pieces. And so I think it's informed my work. And most people, when they come to my booth, would not look at me and say, oh, you were in the Army for 20 years. Like it's not written on my face.
That's a really cool background story.
Yeah.
So, but now when you say that, like you must have like that engineering thinking in writing that, and that preciseness probably makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think it informs my work. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to know where we can find you on social media.
So I'm mostly on Instagram. I found that's sort of my platform of choice. So I'll post. I'm not always a daily poster. I'm in my stories off and on. Yeah, sometimes I'm just not feeling great, but I do try and share my work like every few days or so, and sometimes it's every day, but on Instagram mostly, and I share then to Facebook from there. So Bright Spot Papier is my handle on Instagram, and it is also my handle on Facebook. Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to link that below, and we are going to come visit you in your shop. So thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us, Tanya.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Awesome. See you soon.
See ya.